Hi, I'm Maggie Alphonsi and I am the host for this session. In case you don't know who I am, I'm the director of the Vitalities Champions programme. I'm also a former England rugby player winning Rugby World Cup back in 2014. So this webinar is to celebrate International Women's Day and to talk about the rise of women's sport, as women's sport has gone through the absolute roof and it's encouraged more women to want to get physically active despite all the barriers that there may be. So that might be starting weights training for the very first time, or just embracing the social and the community benefits of sport. So I'm here with Gabby Logan, and today we're going to talk about the rise of women's sport and how it's encouraged more women to get into sport, and also talk about what she does to look after herself. So let's get into it, Gabby.
Hi.
Gabby, I guess, what do you feel has been the rise of women's sport? How have you seen it change over the last few years?
I think we kind of go back maybe even as far as 2012, the London Olympics. And that for me felt like one of those big watershed moments for women's sport, because I think it was the first time that Team GB had more female gold medal winners than male. And so many icons were born from those Olympic Games, whether it was Jessica Ennis-Hill, Victoria Pendleton. Beth Tweddle had already been a world champion, but she also was part of a very successful group of women who transcended the Olympics, because afterwards they still were kind of with us as household names, as people that we looked up to and revered in sport. And of course as well, at that Olympics, we had a Team GB football team, and they were at Wembley against Brazil. I think it was about 80,000 went to watch that. Now we know what's happened in women's football since. So there were quite a few benchmark moments, landmark moments, I think, at those games. And of course they are the fruition of lots of hard work and behind the scenes that's been going on for a very long time. I always compare it to a tanker turning, and it felt like the tanker was finally going in the right stream and the right direction. And then since then, I think it's almost, it's gone on its own trajectory, its own journey into so many different areas of women's sport. We've seen the increase of professionalism and the increase in uptake in participation, prize money, brands being interested. Sorry about that.
I've got two dogs. I know what it's like. So I think you've really highlighted it. It's been fantastic to see over the last few years all the fantastic landmarks and the milestones that have happened over the years. So I guess, have you noticed through the rise of women's sport, have you seen more women get physically active as a result of it?
Yeah, I think there's been two kind of areas of growth. You've got the actual kind of professional women's sport, which now is incredible when you think about kind of 30 years ago, very few women could make a living out of sport. When I was a kid, you'd see golfers and maybe tennis players making a living, but athletics was purely amateur, and there was no women's rugby, there was no women's football, that they weren't making a living out of doing their sports. So you've got the rise of women's professional sport, so many different sports now where we see women actually making a living doing their sport. And then on the other side, you've got women participating in a wider range of sports for fun, as amateurs or just to keep fit. And also women realising that sport is not something that they just dropped at 12 because they didn't want to do it at school anymore. It's something they've got to keep doing through their lives. And that means finding something that they enjoy, something that they can have easy access to, and understanding that things like weightlifting, which women were always a little bit, nervous about lifting weights, are vital for bone health and, other kind of anti-aging. And when I say that, I mean purely physiologically benefits to the body. So the education around exercise and how we can kind of look after ourselves and live a healthy older age is so important.
Don't you find it quite interesting as well that I think more women are seeing and visibly seeing more women at a higher end take up sport and do it really well? And it's almost been given permission to say, I can do it, and I can do it and be whatever size it may be, or whatever sport it may be, or it could be weights training. So it's almost like there's greater access into sport now for women. And I guess next question I want to ask you is, what do you think are the barriers stopping women getting into sport? Because you've said it, there has been an increase, but there are still some women who look at it and go, I'm not doing that. What do you think are the things stopping them?
Sometimes for women it's historic. They didn't have a good time with PE at school. They didn't think of themselves as sporty girls. They dropped all that when they were 13, when they first could. And then they found their relationship with exercise hasn't always been a healthy one. And that's often mixed in with the relationship with food and the pressures of society, kind of in terms of body image and what you're supposed to look like. And it can all seem a bit overwhelming and a bit too much, actually. And And if you've got friends who exercise, you're more likely to probably follow their suit. Whereas if you're kind of in a social circle where that's not the thing that's done, then you might, or culturally, that might be something that you've grown up not seeing women exercising. You might not feel it's for you. So I think there are lots of different reasons why women don't want to exercise. A fear of, getting into a gym where they're not sure what to do with the equipment or how hard they've got to work. That's, the other thing I think when you've come from a professional sporting background, you understand your body can do a lot before it, breaks down. You can push yourself really hard. But if you don't know how hard you're supposed to train or what it's supposed to feel like, that's something that it's quite hard to kind of grasp that concept. That's why sometimes it's good to actually use a coach or an instructor just to get you going on those things, and also finding something that you really enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to go back the next time. And that might be better for you to do it in a group. It might be better to join a netball team or join something that you have to be accountable to. So, if you just put in your diary, I'm going to exercise every day this week, chances are you won't. It's going to be really hard for you to commit that. But if you say, right, on Monday at 7, I'm going to go for a run. I've got this app that I'm using and I'm going to commit to something. I'm going to be answerable to something. And then Tuesday, I'm going to book into that class, which is a HiiT class or whatever it is you want to do. I think you're more likely to commit to those things.
Absolutely. Sorry, just to add to a bit, I absolutely agree with you. I think the whole thing around, when we talk about exercising for women, is social aspect is really significant, isn't it? And that accountability. So knowing that I need to be able to turn up with somebody or turn up for somebody. So I guess my next question I want to sort of ask you is, when it comes to your training, what do you do? Because I'm quite intrigued by that. How do you keep yourself looking healthy and fit?
Over the years, I've done lots of different things, and I still kind of change it up every now and again. At the moment, I love Pilates, which I think I'll probably do forever because it's so good for your whole spine, not just what we call the core, in terms of the aesthetic, if you like, but actually the strength of your back and everything. And as you get older, I'm 50, and as you get older,
50, you look great for 50.
Maggie.
Oh my god!
As you get older, your posture is so important, and that's something that helps you stay younger in terms of your ability to do things. And so without injury you can do so much more, and looking after yourself and your small muscles, which Pilates does. So I love that. Also like to do weights, because I know that's really important for bone density, and it's really important for building muscle. It's so much harder to build muscle after the age of 35. Women's muscles atrophy at a much quicker rate than men, to do with hormonal changes. So you've got to work hard to keep those muscles. I've recently taken on a running challenge, which I hadn't done for years. So I'm going to do a half marathon soon, 6 weeks or so. So I've been doing a lot of running.
So
it's going really well. Yeah, I'm loving it. And but I think doing all those other things has supported my skeleton for the running, because I was worried about my body not really being able to cope with the load of the running. And actually it's been great from a headspace point of view. It's amazing. I've only done, I think, of all the runs I've done one with headphones in, because I like to kind of feel like I can hear what's going on, kind of use my thoughts to get me through, rather than a soundtrack. It's just the way I like to do it. So occasionally I run with a mate locally, which has been great as well. We just yabber all the way around. I did a lot of cycling last year, did a big cycling challenge. So I try and then when it comes to sport, I like to play tennis, and I'm a classic summer tennis person. I'm not going to go out in the winter and kind of cold nights. But I found paddle as well recently, which is brilliant, because it's a lot less impactful on the joints to tennis. So that's been really good fun and sociable. I play with 3 friends. In fact, I'm playing tonight, and I play with 3. Well, it's not always the same 3, but you play doubles, and it's just lovely having that hour on court with your mates and having a laugh and feeling at the end of it like you've done a bit of exercise.
Did you find it slightly nerve-wracking starting something new? So with the running, because obviously you're a former athlete yourself, so was that a slight challenge? And the weights training as well. Was there a little bit of stepping out of your comfort zone?
When I started doing weights, I must have been kind of 30. I started with a trainer and trained with him all the time. And actually, I loved that, because I still felt quite young then. Do you know what I mean? So that was, but the running, I hadn't run properly, like done anything serious for about 20 years. I do the odd 5K, but I hadn't done a volume. So I was a bit nervous about what was I going to be able to do. And you tell yourself, well, I'm 20 years older, and actually, I'm probably on target to do a quicker half marathon than I did when I was 30, which amazing. Just shows you what you're capable of, and not to write yourself off and not think that, oh, well, I'm not 15 anymore, I can't do that. There's so much information out there now. We're on the one hand, I think social media can be a bit of a nightmare for kind of body image and exercise and expectation, but actually the educational things that are out there are really good. And if you are going to follow those things, it's important you follow somebody who is qualified, knows what they're doing, is not faddy, and gives you good advice. But also sometimes in-person things are really good. So go and have some coaching from somebody and know what you're doing properly.
When's your half marathon? I didn't even ask. When is that coming
beginning
up?
of April.
Oh,
yeah. Just
gonna
ahead of
smash
the.
it. You're gonna be fine.
I did a. You know where I live, the area. You're in this area. You know that massive hill from
I do.
Tesco's up to.
Yeah.
I had to run that in an 18K the other day, and it was towards the end of it as well. Holy moly!
Like your legs are through
that was
tar.
up here. I was just like, and then halfway up the hill there was a couple walking, and I had to say excuse me as I was going past them. And when they turned around, I knew them. It was so embarrassing. No. Yeah. So then I had to look really quick up the rest of the hill because
you've got to look very athletic and just like
Oh, this is easy. What, this hill?
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, but so much of it is in the mind, and that's what you learn as well. I think that your mind can be your biggest barrier in these things, and actually your body's willing to do so much more. So it's a real mind-body kind of conversation that goes on, and that part of it I've really enjoyed, because I think it's so important as you get older to keep pushing yourself and not just take the kind of easy chair and go, oh, okay, I'm fine, I feel all right. Actually, I want to keep just seeing what I can do and hopefully keep up with the kids.
Well, I love the fact that you're trying to find something enjoyable in it as well, because that's the thing, isn't it? We set our goals and our sort of focus on, I'm going to do this training, but then you start to lose the love in it, and actually it's trying to find the enjoyable bits from it. So I love the whole bit around paddle, the tennis, that's obviously very new and very sociable, and then running with somebody else as well. So I think that's incredibly key. I guess I want to ask a question about your podcast, your Midpoint podcast. Is that correct? Are you able to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the Midpoint, I started in lockdown 2020, coming up for 4 years, and I had this kind of reverse eureka moment the year before, where I thought, oh my God, I was 46-ish at the time, and I thought, I don't feel like I'm middle-aged, but apparently according to the Economic and Social Research Council, I am. And so I started thinking about this and about how there's still so much I wanted to do in life, and how I wasn't prepared to kind of feel like I had to slow down for some reason, because middle-age felt like something when I was younger that was the beginning of the end, and I wanted to make it the beginning of the start and not something that was going to kind of slow me down. So I thought I'll interview some interesting, well-known middle-aged people who have done slightly different things. The first person was John Bishop, who at 40 was selling pharmaceutical drugs, and at 41 was making a living out of comedy. So, having a big midlife pivot. And then eventually it just kind of rolled into all kinds of different well-known midlife people who might not have done big changes, but had interesting stories to tell, inspiring. Sometimes a lot of the women shared their menopausal and perimenopausal journeys as well. So that has become a much bigger conversation outside of, because of a lot of great women, whether it's Davina McCall or Lisa Snowdon has a big following in that area as well. Caroline Harris MP has done a lot of campaigning for recognition of the menopause as something that people in the workplace should acknowledge. So it's been great. I love it. It's my perfect kind of my dream job, really, sitting down and just chatting to people, and hopefully the feedback that I get, it kind of helps people navigate what can be a slightly strange period of life, because you've got things like empty nesting happening. People's kids leave home and they're kind of dealing with all sorts of new but exciting ways of living their lives.
So on your podcast, which is pretty amazing, you've interviewed many interesting people. Have you come away feeling inspired hearing their stories and how they've overcome their challenges?
I think every episode I record, there's something I take away from the guest. And we also have experts who come on who deal with things like nutrition, gut health, fitness trainers, relationship experts, grief counsellors, all sorts of people who come on, and there's always something that they say that I'm intrigued by. And I think everybody's kind of physical journey is different, so there's something for everyone to take away. But also the people who come on really do share some personal and intimate kind of feelings about this period of life, and that I feel really grateful to that they want to share those stories. And it does make me feel very inspired, because there are a lot of great kind of people in this space doing really interesting things, and I think it's from the feedback I get from the people who listen as well, I think it's shared that feeling of yeah, okay, I'm gonna push on now, and I'm gonna do this. This is a good way of dealing with this problem I've got, or this challenge in my life right now.
That's so good. Well, I guess I want to come back to the sporting side of things. You know, see, when it comes to women's sport and trying to get more women to be physically active, there's almost these myths. There's all these assumptions that if you've got big arms, you shouldn't exercise, or I don't want to look too muscly or too strong. Do you feel there are ways to overcome these myths? You know, how do we go about trying to encourage women to go, it's okay to participate in physical activity? What would be your tips?
Well, I'd say, you know, you talked about the midpoint, and the every single physical trainer who's come on has said the one thing that women should do in midlife is be doing some weights because of the importance for metabolism and, you know, sarcopenia of muscles, osteoporosis. And they also say the same thing, that you literally have to be doing 3 hours of weights a day and taking on board, you know, so much protein that you'd almost not be able to buy enough protein if you know, to develop a body that looks like somebody who is a professional bodybuilder. If that's not what you want, don't worry about it, because 45 minutes of weights and a normal diet is just going to leave you with strengths. And I feel like, who doesn't want to be strong? You know, and I don't want to be not being able to move a piece of furniture because, you know, I can't lift that chair, or I don't, you know, I want to be able to have strength to do things and not have to rely on other people for as long as I possibly can. So, and the benefits that I think women often like are that muscle literally burns fat, you know, so your metabolism is going to be quicker through having muscle than not having muscle. So I personally prefer that. I'd rather have strength, you know. It doesn't mean that every muscle is going to be as defined as it would be when you're 20 years old, because Mother Time is not really going to allow that to happen, but you're going to feel so much better and you get so much more energy as well.
How good is it though in the media that we do see such a range of women? Big arms, big legs, you know, small waist. There's a real range, and I think now young girls coming through, older women as well, are seeing these people and going, I can be like that regardless of whatever their training is.
You know, what is normal? What is beautiful? What is ideal? You know, there are so many different ways, and for me, the one word is just health, you know, and being healthy and being able to, health is wealth. It is the thing that you know, I think for yourself and your loved ones, you value the most. And so being active, being healthy is above all body kind of aesthetics for me. And I look back at my 18-year-old self who was worried about the fact she didn't have a gap in her thighs like all the models she saw in the magazines, and I think, oh, that's such a waste of time, because obviously, you know, I wasn't going to be able to change the way my body was actually kind of built. You know, it wasn't, I could be fit, but I was never going to have a 6'2" frame of a supermodel. That wasn't going to be my body. But it's so kind of, you know, it's so kind of sad, isn't it, that you spend time, and actually that mind shift of when I realised that actually I just want to be healthy. Oh God, I'm going to waste all that time. I probably could have learned Mandarin the amount of time I spent looking at, like, you know, a body that I was never going to have. And I do see a positive change. I've got an 18-year-old daughter who definitely has a different view of her body to me at that age, and much healthier view of, you know, how she looks and what, you know, what is beautiful and what is, you know, kind of possible, because it's all for her. It's much more about health than it is about dieting and kind of wanting to have a different frame, because none of that stuff's sustainable, and you're not going to be a healthy person if you're constantly restricting yourself and, you know, you're worrying about things in your body that, you know, you can't. And it's easier said than done, I realise that, and a lot of people, you know, have a lot of time kind of spent worrying about it, and it takes time to overcome it. But it is a real relief when you go, oh, actually I don't care, I just want to be healthy and well.
It's funny, I got asked that question, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? And it would have been exactly what you said, not to worry about my body, actually utilise the strengths that you have, because it's about being healthy rather than thinking about, I want to be like the person on that magazine or the person on the TV. And it's actually just appreciating what your body can do, which is so important. So I guess I'm going to finish with one last question, which is, because obviously lifestyle is a big focus for you, and like you said, health and well-being. What would be your lifestyle tips to anyone who's obviously watching?
So for me, lifestyle is about planning and it's about habit forming. And so if that's your food and what you're eating, you've got to buy the things that are going to make the good meals, you know, and it might take you a little bit extra time at the start, but there's so many easy fixes in food. You know, if people haven't got time to cook, okay, open a can of chickpeas, open a can of cannellini beans, chop a red onion up, chop some tomatoes up, put some parsley in there and maybe some tuna. that is an amazing healthy lunch. And
that
that
is my
takes you
kind of meal.
1 minute to do all of those things, you know. So not eating healthy does not have to take a long time. It doesn't have to cost you the earth either, you know. 3 of those things were tins, you know. So we can all make excuses about, oh, well, you know, I couldn't get to the supermarket, couldn't do this, you know. So it's planning, which again means you've got to just think at the beginning, whether that's a Sunday night or Monday morning, what, you know, what's your week look like? And the same with exercise. You know, I've got a moment of really busy schedule, but I will not give up those exercise periods, whether it's my runs or my Pilates, because I know I won't get through this period if I stop exercising. I'll end up probably getting ill and not feeling great. The running and the exercise gives me the energy to keep going. So that means, right, okay, I've got this slot here, you know, I can do that there. I can get up a bit earlier here and I can do it. And I feel so much better for it. But it is all habit forming, and apparently it takes 21 days to get a new habit. It's not that long when you think about it, is it? So it takes 21 days for a habit to become a practice. So that is really quite a short period of time for you to revolutionize your life. The first day will feel hard. You'll feel like, this is a bit weird. Why am I doing this? And, you know, by the end of week 1, you'll be into the rhythm of what you're doing and seeing the benefits of what you're doing. So I think lifestyle has to be the whole thing, you know, it's the whole practice. I saw a lovely little film the other day. Some guy was filming on Venice Beach in LA, and there was this really fit guy, and it turned out he was 60, he looked amazing, and he was exercising on the beach, and the person he was interviewing said, I just want to know what it is it that you do to look so good. And he said, it's probably also what I don't do. And, you know, he said, I don't forego sleep. I won't let myself, you know, try and live on 3 or 4 hours sleep. And this guy didn't eat rubbish food. He didn't, you know, he particularly didn't like alcohol. You know, he wasn't doing drugs. Well, so he was like basically saying there's a lot of stuff that you can not do in your life as well to help your health and well-being. So, yeah, it's the whole thing.
Look, Gabby, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for welcoming us to your home to be able to talk about the rise of women's sport, but also about what you're doing to stay fit, healthy, and look after your well-being.
Well, I'm also like always inspired by women like you who have, you know, blazed a trail in your sport, but also you've given, you know, other young women the opportunity to do sport. And also when I go and present, whether it's women's rugby, women's football, even men's sport, you know, I'm always inspired by the athletic prowess of professional athletes, and, you know, trying to get 5% of their lifestyle into my own. So, yeah, I feel very lucky that I've got a lot of role models around me. So thank you for what you do.
No, an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed that webinar. Obviously talking about the rise of women's sport, but just talking about how to find habits, how to prepare, but also just how to look after our general well-being. So thank you.
And keep it fun.
Keep it fun, absolutely. Sorry, fun. That's incredibly key. Thank you.